Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's BDF44 coming at you with another video. Okay, this is what we're talking about, the Boston Celtics. I'm a Laker fan, so you guys are the ops, the other side, them over there, not from over here. I don't like you, you don't like me, but I'm going to put all that to the side right now so that we can talk about the team and give you an understanding of what to expect from your team, and I can give you an unbiased understanding of the players that you have on the back of your bench. Because you guys got some guys that I actually have learned a great deal about over the last hour, and I'm looking forward to talking about them. So, yeah, let's zoom out. No more Laker fan, Brandon. This is BDF, just the guy talking to you about the Celtics. Here we go. Okay, so before we get into the roster, we're going to mention that they have a new head coach in Udoka. I believe his name is, I forget his first name, but it's Ime Udoka, I believe it is. But I remember him. He played for the Spurs. He played for the Lakers a little bit, surprisingly enough. I don't remember his name, but I remember he was with us for a brief moment, I think in like a preseason of his rookie season or something like that. But I remember him in a Laker uniform. Very, very, very good guy to have in terms of your front office and your locker room as your coach. He's always stayed close to the game. Grew up under Greg Popovich, so you're getting somebody who's definitely looking for a great opportunity to show what it is he can do from a coaching perspective. And I'm curious and highly optimistic that he's going to do a fantastic job. So Ime Udoka, I believe is how you say his name correctly. And he's your new head coach. And also has, a real cool fun fact about him is he's married to Nia Long. So that's really cool. Actress I grew up watching a lot. So let's talk about the roster he's going to be coaching. First of all, you are not going to go too far into talking about the Boston Celtics without mentioning Jayson Tatum in this era. He's the guy there right now, simply just one of the best young talents on in basketball right now. Just a complete and utter monster on both sides of the floor, using his length and his superior shooting and scoring ability and basketball IQ to just ultimately will himself to the best possible statistics and ultimately a lot of success for his team. Don't get it twisted. I'm not saying he's a stat chaser. I'm saying that his talent allows him the greatness of continuing to ascend in statistics each and every year in just about every category necessary. I don't know if there are 7 players in the league that I think have higher upside than Jayson Tatum, to be completely honest with you. This is somebody who the Lakers passed up on to get Lonzo Ball. I was on board with that, but I never once thought that Lonzo was actually a better player. We were just in our feelings about wanting to bring that kid home. But Jayson Tatum was always the better player. Of course, we know that the Philadelphia 76ers didn't think that because they traded away from being able to get him. Traded up so that they can move, traded down rather, so they can get away from him and ultimately take Markelle Fultz. I think that's how that went. I don't know. But you guys get what I'm saying. They made the wrong decision. You guys that made the right one. Traded your pick and still got your guy. And ultimately, he is now an NBA superstar, whom I expect to make an all-star team this year. Next up, Jaylen Brown. Another all-star. First-time all-star last year, if I'm not mistaken. A guy who's taken some steps forward over the last several years. Now that some guys have gotten out the way and given him an opportunity to finally have the starting shooting guard position. It's a guy who's paid his dues on this Boston Celtics team, as everybody's basically been forced to dealing with this team over the last 4 years, and has really shown out as somebody who is a legitimate star in this league at this point. You have to say that. What we saw from him last year was just fantastic. He made a complete jump in terms of his overall production, and again made an all-star team last year. The thing about Jaylen Brown is it was never his fault that he didn't bust out the gate and ball out. They always had Jaylen Brown playing behind people that he had no business playing behind, given his draft status. Now, it could have worked in his favor in some ways because it made him patient and made it so that he had to get in certain types of shape that kept him out of positions to get hurt and things of that nature, whatever. But I think his development would have been further along, even from where it is now, if he would have been drafted into a better situation and not been asked to sit so much so early. And then, of course, we all remember, the year where my guy Gordon Hayward went down with the ankle freak ankle accident, and Of course, Jaylen Brown was given an opportunity to play some real minutes, played some meaningful basketball in the playoffs that year, really made a name for himself. And then the Celtics asked him to sit back down when they acquired Kyrie Irving, and all these things brought Gordon Hayward back from injury slowly. And that year was just basically a lost year in terms of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown having their correct roles after proving themselves as playoff performers. I just thought that was a slap in the face from the organization to those players, but those players took it on the chin. They remained professional, and they continued to thrive even under those circumstances. So now they finally have an opportunity where, we're well past the Kyrie Irving stuff, well past the Gordon Hayward stuff. We're in a space where this team is truly built around those two players. They are the focal point. It starts and ends with them, and everybody around them is essentially supposed to complement what they do. I think this is honestly the first time they've had that. Last year was a little more. It was some of that, but they still had to share the spotlight with a guy like Kemba Walker. They still had to do some things that kind of took the ball out of their hands somewhat. That should not be the case this year. So I like Jaylen Brown's upside for this year in terms of making another All-Star team, continuing to ascend. It's just simply a fantastic two-guard in this league who's yet to be asked, to do the things that I know he's capable of doing. There's another level for Jaylen Brown, and it's already begun. The conversations of whether or not he's better than Jason Tatum, I think they're legitimate at this point. They always were. It's just that he didn't have the opportunity to show it because of the position that he played on this particular team and the other players that they had in front of him. So, moving on. Next name I'm going to talk about is Marcus Smart. And that's a guy that they drafted here that they love very much. I mean, this is a guy who they've had the entire time in a specific role to basically be a designated defender from the two-guard and point guard position. And from there, he's developed into a player who slowly but surely improved his game in other areas. It was almost laughable when he came into the league, his three-point shot, because he shot it without any issues in terms of confidence, but it was very, very seldom that it fell. But he kept at it, he stays at it, and now I've seen games where he's hit 6 and 7 of them in a game. He has improved behind the arc. Now, he still needs to work on certain things in terms of his shot selection, but anything that he may have not been able to show thus far in that area, he has definitely proven defensively. He's simply one of the best on-ball defenders in all of basketball. When I think about defense, my mind goes to him when I'm thinking about guards, along with several other players, but his name is one of the first people to come to mind. He's just a fantastic defender that will not quit. A relentless, powerful motor he has defensively, and it does translate offensively as well. He facilitates well. He's gotten much better in that area. He's always been a good finisher. I've always been high on him, and I think the good thing about his development is the fact that they've put him in a situation where there was a lot of rope to be who it is that he was because of the role. He was always playing behind 2 and 3 point guards at all times, but he was still so good at what he did and deficient in the areas that they could allow him to be deficient in so that he can kind of have his development go well. So he was just slotted just right in terms of his development and coming to a team that'll let him be himself. I think of a guy like Chris Dunn, I believe his name is, who probably has some of the similar strengths and weaknesses, was drafted around the same time. If he were given that role, maybe he could have developed into something like Marcus Smart has. You just have to love how guys find themselves in the right place. So that's what I think of Marcus Smart. He's going to continue to ascend in this league. And I really don't know what his upside is from here because he continues to get better. For all I know, if he continues to get better, maybe he could turn into a real three-point threat, like a real one, someone you'd have to deal with in terms of consistency, because that's his only the only knock on him is his consistency from behind the arc and his consistency scoring the ball. Otherwise, he's a guy who fills it up. Box score, steals, you're going to get a lot of steals from this guy. He's going to be active. He's going to get some blocks. He's going to force you to make mistakes. He's just definitely somebody you want in both team defensive settings and, of course, on the ball, guarding the best player. That's what I think of Marcus Smart. Next up, I'm going to talk about Robert Williams, man. Robert Williams is Time Lord. We know of him to be Time Lord because of, I guess legend tells it, he was late for 2 different situations And that was the first thing that they saw in regard. That was like the first impression was him being late twice in a row. So needless to say, that was not the greatest start for him. But all in all, he's become somebody that they truly believe in, and I don't blame him because he's one of the best shot blockers in basketball already. He just simply is. He has a great motor as well. He knows defense, and he uses his length to get him and his fantastic timing to get rebounds and to get block shots on a very consistent basis. You're going to have a hard time shooting over the Boston Celtics this year because of the likes of Robert Williams and several other defensive players that they have. Letting you guys know early, the Boston Celtics are special on the defensive end, believe it or not. It's subtle, but they do have defensive players in every position, and their stars are good at defense. So if I am reading the tea leaves in regards to this team just early looking at this roster, I'd say the defense is what they want to focus on there. Udoka's going to spend a great deal of time working defensive schemes into the equation if he's using this roster to what it looks like their strengths are to me. Yeah, they're going to be able to score the ball very well in certain positions, but as a team, they should be effective defensively. They should be. So that's something I'm going to be paying attention to. And Robert Williams is the head of the snake in that regard. You just have to deal with his length, and you have to deal with his timing, as I said. Shot blocking extraordinaire. Double threat every night. Going to get high field goal percentages because he's going to take good inside shots and dunk them and all that good stuff. So I'm super high on Robert Williams. I think they're smart for building around him. I would have liked for them to keep Moses Brown, of whom they acquired for a couple seconds and then shipped him off, I believe, to Dallas. But they created space for Robert Williams to do what it is that he does and not have to look over his shoulder for a young player. And I think that's ultimately the mistake that they've made with a lot of the players that they've had over the years. So if they're shaking that off, I think that's more than half the battle for this roster going forward. So I like that a lot. Let's see. Next up, Josh Richardson. Now, Josh Richardson to me is a player with more potential than he's shown. I don't really want to say that I'm certain because I'm not of what may be going on, but from afar it just looks like he hasn't really recovered from losing his situation, his role in Miami. That was a role that he thrived in. He was playing well in. Obviously, he was drafted there. It just seemed like he fit well in what it is that they were doing. And since leaving there, he hasn't really found a home. He's jumped around a little bit. I think he found himself in Portland, I believe, last year. They just didn't have the role for him. You know, it was a running thing that the team gets better when he leaves, that kind of thing. And I don't know that Dallas is any exception, to be honest with you. We'll see. But he comes to Boston right now, and I think the role is okay. You know, it's a good role because they're going to need him to just play some defense, hit a couple shots, and not really worry about scoring too much. But the bulk of their score is going to be coming from other situations, so it's not going to be upon him to make up the difference for the lack of Curry in Boston, in Dallas's case when they brought him in. You know, that was what they were hoping to have him do. They lost Seth Curry. They brought Josh Richardson in, and their three-point shooting went to the toilet. So, you know, it's not incumbent upon him on this team to really stretch the floor like that. He can kind of settle back into slashing and playing defense, and they'll find roles for him that work. And if he doesn't play well, they got plenty of guys at his position. He doesn't ever have to see the floor. So that's the reality of Josh Richardson's situation. I do think early on he's a good candidate to start at one of the wing positions, possibly the three or something like that, depending. But, you know, if he disappoints, they don't need him. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, they don't need him. To be completely and utterly honest with you. So it's a what do you call this situation? It's like a low risk. It's a low risk situation bringing in Josh Richardson. You know, he can potentially help their defense quite a bit. So we'll see what happens there. Let's see. Next name, Bruno Fernando, another guy who can block shots, a big body dude, kind of a center who kind of plays the bench more so. But when you bring him in, you understand that you're boosting your ability to block shots. You're boosting your size quite a bit. He has very, very long arms. He's very aggressive. And if I'm not mistaken, he can shoot a three or two. So Bruno Fernando is a valuable player because of his ability to do that and still be so very, very good with using his size and being a presence defensively. So that's what I know of Bruno Fernando. Still a young player, and a good center to have in this rotation of centers. Next name up, of course, Al Horford. I kind of skipped over his name accidentally, but he is on this team. They got him in a trade from the Thunder, bringing him back for his second tenure with Boston, a place he probably should have never left. He was doing pretty good there after leaving Atlanta. Didn't skip a beat, and then ended up in Philly. That didn't go well. Ended up in OKC, had a good season, but they shut him down early because OKC was not playing for anything at all. So he finds himself back in Boston. And what I know from Al Horford is Al Horford was an underrated superstar, to be completely honest with you. He was a part of an Atlanta team that had the best record in the league one year. And what ended up hurting him, from my recollection, was two very catastrophic pectoral injuries in his prime. Early in his prime, when he was playing his best ball, he hurt his pec twice, and ultimately had to have surgery on it, I believe, both times, definitely once. So that just kind of set him back somewhat, but ultimately he's somebody who I think Atlanta should consider retiring his jersey. Like he was that guy for Atlanta for a little bit. Just an overall fantastic center, fluid center who could shoot the ball, facilitate, rebound the ball, high motor, inside presence. He really didn't have too many holes in his game. Great defensively in his prime. He's just an all-around star. And at this stage in his career, he's a role player, but because of his ability to shoot and facilitate, you can play him at the 4, you can play him at the 5, and you just know he's an expert basketball mind who's going to continue to be able to play basketball on any floor he plays on. So as long as he's healthy, he's going to help you. Even if he doesn't have a whole lot to take, even if he's not necessarily so fast, he's still, with his passing ability and his shooting ability, going to make people better. So you got to love having Al Horford, especially at this price. There's no crazy price tag on him at this time. He's just a good piece for this team. Very good piece, actually, if you think about it. All right. Next name up, Jabari Parker. Jabari Parker is a guy who just had so much natural ability, so much. I think the problem was, as we all know, he's had 3 very, very, very catastrophic knee injuries that required him to go under the knife. When you have 2 in one leg and 1 in the other, I mean, it's just kind of hard to have a career in basketball. But yet and still, here he is, one of those guys that I mention often who, even though he's had injury issues, has now, because of those injury issues, developed the ability to keep himself in good working order. Those injuries kind of gave him the habits to kind of work himself into shape consistently and eat right and all that other stuff that injuries ultimately force you to do, and pay more attention to what your body's doing, etc. So now he's a pretty durable player at this point. He's strung together some good years with Sacramento. If I'm not mistaken, he was somewhere else as well. Kind of lost track. He's been in some several situations, but he's landed here, I believe, 2 years ago or a year ago, and has a pretty solid role here as a stretch 4-3 kind of guy who's just going to score the ball. You never look to him to play defense. You're never looking to him to really do anything other than score the ball, rebound a little bit, and he can do that. Even now, Jabari Parker can still score on you. So you got to respect his scoring ability, and at this stage, he's not going to be asked to play more than 15 minutes a game or whatnot. So in that role, he's very helpful for the Boston Celtics. All right, let's see what else we got going. Enes Kanter. Now, we know Enes Kanter. Everybody knows Enes Kanter. A pure inside presence, scoring the ball. Can stretch the floor. Very, very talented scoring the ball. I've seen him do some phenomenal stuff in short spurts. I remember one game he went for like 15 points in like 3 minutes, something crazy. Rebound the ball like a madman. He had like a double-double in like first quarter or something. So you know what he does when he's feeling right. When he's at his best, he can put up close to all-star numbers. Consistent scorer. Not really a defensive presence, not really a rebounder, but definitely somebody who's going to score the ball. And it's just going to bring a lot of energy and a lot of personality to your bench. So if you have Enes Kanter on the team, you know it. You know what I mean? He's definitely somebody who's going to ingratiate himself with your fans and with the locker room, and it's going to be a fan favorite no matter where he goes. He has several natural homes around the league. Him and his boy, Steven Adams. They just, no matter where they are, they're home. We remember them together in OKC. That's where they stand out. So, yeah, that's Enes Kanter. I think he's going to help this team at the center position as well. Minutes are kind of going to be all over the place with him, Horford, and Williams on the team together. Bruno as well. They're going to play all those guys at some point. Enes usually comes in when somebody gets hurt and starts and is essentially asked to score as a starting center during portions of the season. That's the consistency of his role, really, where he's gone over the last several years. when the big guy gets hurt, here he comes to play center, and he does it starting. So that's just something I've noticed. Kind of 3 years in a row with that. So yeah, that's Enes Kanter. Let's see. Juancho Hernan Gomez is on this team as well. He came from Minnesota. His brother's also in this league. I think he plays for Charlotte. It's kind of hard to keep up. I know they've moved again. Those guys move around quite a bit, but they're both in this league. They both play center, and one of them plays for the Celtics. That's about as much as I can give you at this time. Let's see. They got a rookie by the name of Sam Hauser out of Marquette, 6'8" power forward. He was undrafted this year, and they picked him up. He's going to be a power forward on the back of their roster. And they got a guy out of France with the 45th pick, a shooting guard, who's 6'5" guy by the name of Johan Belgerin. I believe I'm saying that correctly. Johan Belgerin. So yeah, he's a 6'5" shooting guard out of France. All right, if you guys have been watching these videos, you know that there are players that I usually pick, usually guys that have been drafted this year, the previous year, or maybe guys that were drafted high 2 years back. I will do homework on these players, and I'll tell you about those players. So if you haven't heard anybody, a particular player you're waiting for, that is why. Oh, and Dennis Schroeder. I forgot to mention Dennis Schroeder because I've had so many conversations about Dennis Schroeder because I kind of just subconsciously looked over his name. Dennis Schroeder was with the Lakers last year. You can go through my videos. You're going to see plenty of videos about Dennis Schroeder addressing his situation. I don't want to talk about it right now, to be completely honest with you, but I'm happy that he found the resolve for it. I'm rooting for Dennis Schroeder. I think he's going to have a role with this team. I don't know how big that role is going to be to where he'll be able to play up his value because they do have some fantastic guards and shooting players on this team. But if he has a fully healthy season, I'm hopeful that he can kind of at least recoup some of the money that he lost this year. So that's as much as I'll say about Dennis Schroeder. All around fantastic offensive guard. You're not looking for him to defend. You're not looking for him to facilitate. But he can drive. He's very good at the line. He can really shoot the three, even though he didn't play well in the playoffs for us. A lot had to do with the structuring of our roster at various times between when he was out there playing well, when he went down with COVID protocol for about 5 or 6 games, and then when he got back from that situation, he wasn't the same. The team wasn't the same because we had 2 key players go down in Braun and AD, and ultimately he just wasn't able to recover from the differences that our team provided, et cetera, et cetera. It was just incumbent upon him to do things that he didn't necessarily do before COVID protocol, and because of it, coupled with the fact that he was just in a slump on top of that, it just was a perfect storm of bad stuff. So I've seen great Dennis Schroeder. He looked good in the beginning of the season for us. The majority of the season, he looked good for us, and he's going to look good for Boston too. You're not picking up a scrub. You're not picking up somebody who's good. You're picking up a very good player. Just his value's down. That's literally all it is. He's healthy. He's ready to go. That's it. So now we can get into the players that I've done homework about. I think I got to all of those guys. Yeah. All right. First name up, guy that I like a lot on this team. Another guard, point guard on this team. Peyton Pritchett out of Oregon, 26th pick in last year's draft, 2020. 6'2" guard with 6'5" wingspan, shot 46.8% from the field in college at Oregon and 41.5% from 3 at Oregon on 6 attempts. So that tells you this guy can shoot the ball. I didn't look up his stats last year, and I usually don't for players in their rookie season because I just don't think it tells the full story. They don't get their full plethora of minutes. They don't have a defined role, et cetera, et cetera. So I usually skip their rookie season and go to the college stats. That gives me more of a sample size of what they're probably capable of when they fully develop. That's why I do that. So what I learned about Peyton Pritchett is something I really already knew, to be honest with you. Just from watching him, I could tell this. That he's a high IQ player who knows where he is at all times and should know where everybody else is at all times. A quintessential point guard. First, great handle. Great handle. This dude can dribble the ball very, very well. Stops, stutter steps, all that. And because he shoots so well, as we've already said, you have to honor that. And chances are he's going to be able to get past you because you're going to honor that 3-point shot so well. So if you're closing out on this guy, beware. Because he can dance on you to take off, and he'll finish at the rim at a high clip. Even though he plays under the rim, he reminds me of a Tony Parker, Steve Nash kind of guy when it comes to finishing the ball. Kyrie-ish, although Kyrie's way in the cosmos when it comes to that, as is Tony Parker, to be honest with you. But that's kind of what it is. You know, he's not dunking the ball, but he's going to finish. He's going to finish. He's one of those guys. Short, but good wingspan for his size. Catch and shoot potential, although he's best off the dribble. He creates for himself with the dribble moves. It just shoots a very, very long three-point shot. His long-range shot is as long as anybody, so you got to guard him at the half-court line. He's one of those. He'll shoot that Dame shot, and he has it in his arsenal at a consistent rate. The long range is one of the first things they talked about, so understand that. He will shoot from way away, and it will go in. A shot maker, as we said, big time competitor, nice touch around the rim, will dance on you, as I've said, makes good reads on passes. Not necessarily a guy who's going to make advanced reads, from what I understand. He's not going to Magic Johnson and Steve Nash it that way. He's not LeBron. But the good, simple team play pass, he can run your offense, and he'll run it very well. He's a facilitator with a lot of upside. Probably considered shoot first, though, and I think you want him shooting first because of how well he shoots. But if necessary, it's not like he's going to be deficient at facilitating the basketball. So yeah, that's what we got, man. A really, really good handle, a creative ball handler. As I've said, he'll dance on you. So that's the gist of it. Peyton Pritchett is a smart basketball player, and because he's undersized, he's a little short at this stage. You wonder how he's going to do on the defensive end. However, because they have such good defensive players in certain key areas on this team, such as Robert Williams and Jason Tatum, of course, and Marcus Smart, etc., I think you can get away with Peyton Pritchett not being a defensive dynamo. You'll definitely love the fact that he's an offensive player. So he, Dennis Schroeder, those guys are going to be running and gunning that second unit. I don't know if they're going to play them together or not, but that's a really, really good thing to see in my mind's eye, especially without Horford on the floor. Maybe give yourself, as a player that we're about to talk about, Romeo Langford, give him some more minutes this year. I think this Boston Celtics bench could potentially be one of the best benches in the league if everything comes together properly. So, yeah, that's what we'll do. We'll move on and talk about Romeo Langford. Romeo Langford is a shooting guard. Really, really intriguing, man. I was not aware of how intriguing this player was until an hour ago, and I'm like this. Honestly, I'm like this. He's out of Indiana, 6'6", 6'11" wingspan, 8'8" standing reach as a shooting guard. Okay? So you're talking about a guy who can basically slap a 7-footer on his knees. Okay? Do you understand? Slap a 7-footer on his face while sitting on his knees. That's how long his arms are. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Versatile athlete with size. Basically, when he fills out his body, he's gonna be one of those superior guys at that shooting guard position. They talk about his body type being similar to Jason Richardson. If you guys remember him, that dunk contest winner, multiple dunk contest winner with the Golden State Warriors. I actually had a chance to meet that guy when I worked at ESPN Zone. Real cool guy, good energy. But he has a similar body type to this guy. Romeo is not the athlete that he is. He's not doing all that winding up dunk stuff. Jason Richardson was different in that way. But he's very athletic. And let me tell you, if you look up the Summer League, you look up what that dunk he did in the Summer League, you will understand that this is a very, very, very explosive athlete who will jump straight up and dunk on you. The dunk that he did was special. My eyes were like this watching it. I cannot believe the Boston Celtics haven't found a way to get the most out of this young player, because really the upside that I see is nuts. He's not being developed properly, straight up and down. I'm just going to tell the truth. Boston, you ain't doing right by this particular player. You got to do better. He's a versatile athlete with size, as we said. His first step is crazy. He's a smooth athlete. Smooth player. He's not overly fast or anything, but he's crafty. He's good out of the triple threat. Catch and shoot potential. Natural ability on both sides. Immense upside. Can guard 1 through 3. It's a very, very, very gifted rebounder for his position. And you just love the fact that he has natural ability on both sides with his superior metrics. Its length, of course, he can get block shots. He can do a lot of things, steal the ball, get in passing lanes and things of that nature. You just have to teach him how to play and give him the minutes when he learns. I mean, I'm not going to say I blame Boston for why he hasn't necessarily gotten the chance to show he's really, really, really as crazy gifted as he profile shows us he is. because they have players at his position that are stars. So it's like, this is one of those situations where I say, Boston, this kid has more upside than the role that you can give him. And because of it, you got an asset there that as soon as he goes somewhere else, his value is going to skyrocket. This is Kevin Porter with the Cavaliers. This is what this is. And so it's like, do you know what you have? And if you do, are you prepared to make some sacrifices on your roster so that you can allow this kid to play? I like Josh Richardson, but Josh Richardson should not be here because of this kid. Like, literally. He shouldn't even be here. This was a addition by subtraction situation when Evan Fournier signed that huge deal with the Knicks, because it opened up the floor for a guy like Romeo Langford to have real minutes and to gain his confidence. He's natural. This is not somebody you have to teach how to use mechanics or how to do things. You don't have to teach him how to do things. You just got to teach him how to play ball. You got to teach him how to be an NBA player. Once a guy like this, with this type of body, learns how to play, the floor is the ceiling. As I said, with another player in the past, in another video, I said the floor is the ceiling. This is the same type of situation. This kid don't have no bottom floor. His floor is not on the ground. You can put him out there right now and get 10 points out of him just off sheer athleticism. You can put him out there right now and get 2 steals out of him just off his length. Get a block out of him just off his length. I mean, this type of stuff is like, you don't give me no 6'6" shooting guard with 6'11" wingspan, 8'8" standing reach, and you got him on the back of the bench like he's some dude just been playing for 15 years, shouldn't be out here no more. What are you talking about, Boston? Do me a favor. Trade this kid to a place like Portland where they need somebody like this, and just let him have his chance to spread his wings, because he's not going to get that opportunity playing behind Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, who play the same position he does. And you're bringing in guys like Dennis Schroeder who are looking to get paid next thing. I mean, what the hell? How the hell is Romeo Langford supposed to develop properly? At what point does he get the 20 minutes a game necessary to turn him into the player that he ultimately can be? It's not coming from your roster. You're being greedy with this kid. That's what's happening. I've seen this situation around the league in several circumstances where they know they have something special, but they ain't doing nothing with him. This is that. This is very disappointing. And it's not, like I said, it's not the team's fault, because you want to take all the players you can. You want to, but you have to respect the idea that when you get them, if you don't do nothing with them, their value goes to the ground. That caps off the money he can make for his family. That caps off the opportunities other teams get to see him and do homework on him and actually covet him. And it ultimately caps him off when it's time to negotiate about what type of contracts he can get later on, because he never got a chance to develop. And it looks like it's his fault when it's never. It's never the kid's fault. It's 99.9% never the kid's fault. These billion-dollar organizations that are these franchises have the means of developing these players, and they're knowledgeable enough to know that they don't have the role to let these players develop. They just hold them anyway. Not cool. 14th pick in the draft with superior metrics, a natural athlete with smooth ability. What was his downside? He's an inconsistent shooter. What 19-year-old kid with this much natural ability isn't an inconsistent shooter? Find me one. And they all are. I don't want to see this kid turn into something that he's not, just like many other players before him, because you drafted him behind some guys that he can never ascend ahead of on this roster. He's never going to outplay Jaylen Brown enough to get a starting spot over Jaylen. It's never going to happen. Even if he's better than Jaylen Brown when it's all said and done, even if he develops into the player that his metrics tell us is possible, which is not normal, freak athlete. If he develops into that, he'll never be able to show what he can do as long as he's on this team. Period. The end. And I like the fact that they will have a bigger role for him this year. I like the fact that he had a good summer league. But this is a guy who needs the cuffs taken off of him. Throw him into a situation where the team sucks and they don't have no assets. Send him somewhere like Washington and watch him turn into something better than this. Romeo Langford. All right, next up. Another player that they have that needs to develop. I don't really know about this particular player. I'm not going to lie to you guys. after doing homework on him, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of this game. Grant Williams, 22nd pick in the 2019 draft. And he's one of those players that I looked at them and I'm not aware before I'm doing homework on these players, and I'm saying, why didn't he develop? That's why I looked him up. 22nd pick in 19, you haven't developed this guy? Why is he a virtually unknown? Small forward out of Tennessee, 6'11 wingspan, 6'6 power forward. 6'6 power forward with 6'11 wingspan. Okay, fine. I don't like undersized power forwards, but you got a 6'11 wingspan, you might be able to do some things for me. 81% free throw shooter. Bam, love that. You shooting 81% from the free throw line in college, that's a good stat. Low post scorer. He's 6'6". And the first thing you're mentioning to me is he's a low post scorer. All right. You can turn over both shoulders. He can pass well out of back to the basket situation. It's 2021. No one's playing low post, and if they are, they better not be undersized. Turnaround fades, he got some of that. Undersized inside player in this era. He's physical. Could you use him in some situations? Heck yeah. A player with that type of motor. I look at him like Jahlil Okafor. Like a short Jahlil Okafor, right? Doesn't play a whole lot of defense necessarily. Not going to stretch the floor. But 15 feet in, he can give you 40 points. This is that guy. The problem is, I don't need that in 2021. It's certainly not with the 22nd pick in the draft just 3 years ago. Everybody's shooting the ball. I don't remember this pick. I don't think I was paying that close attention to the draft that year. But looking at his draft profile, even though it was 22nd, I probably would have passed on him at the 22nd pick back then. Why? Because his profile doesn't fit the era we're in. You can't use an undersized back-to-the-basket player in 2021. There's no room for it. There's no role for a guy like that. Not in this league. Now, if this is 1995, yeah, you can play him. You can get him out there. You can get some good things out of him. But if he's 6'6", I want him playing the 2 or the 3. With a 6'11 wingspan, you just need different skills to be able to make it in this league, in my opinion. There's no real upside there. You just have to throw him out there, let him do what it is that he does. But the problem is with a player like that is, okay, any point that he gives me, I can get to another player and get those points easier. I can get that to another player and they will allow me opportunities to maybe have more situations going on rather than just sitting there watching a guy with his back to the basket, waiting for other people around him to pass the ball to. I don't know how a role player with that skill set ever turns into anything in this era. There's nothing. There's just, I don't want to sound like a dog here, but like if he can't pass the rock like crazy, or if he's not sufficient, like a really, really good three-point shooter with that type of profile, or if he's not a fantastic defensive player, he locks down people with that profile, and there's no room for him in this league. Like, his skill set, honestly, was respectfully obsolete when he was drafted. So you know it's obsolete now. So I wish I had great things to say. I just don't know where they're going to play this guy. I don't know why he's on the team. I don't know. But I do know this. 81% from the free throw line, and inside presence, he's going to draw fouls. So if I'm in a situation where I need that guy off the floor, like let's say Joel Embiid or somebody, I need this guy off the floor. I'm going to put the ball in Grant Williams' hands, and I'm going to tell him to draw fouls. And he's going to murk up the game, make it ugly. Or if I'm up by a grip, let's say I'm up by 25. I'm put Grant Williams in the game, and I'm going to throw him the ball, and I'm going to let him run clock off. We're going to have 24 seconds run all the way off the clock, and we're going to shoot a shot at the buzzer to kill time. If I want to do something like that, that's Grant Williams for me. He can draw attention from in second units, third units. He's going to draw double teams because he's so good shooting over his shoulder and stuff like that. But as far as playing meaningful basketball in this era against some of the best players in the world, not even at his best do I see a room for him to play in this era. There's no room. There's no space for that. I need a space spreader. I need somebody who can do other things. His profile just doesn't fit in this league. I'm not going to lie. All right, I'm not going to harp on that any further. Let's see. Next up, I got one more name here. Aaron Naismith. Now, I'm going to have a lot better things to say about Aaron Naismith, you guys, because Aaron Naismith is an elite three-point shooter. He was drafted 14th with the 2020, he was drafted with the 14th pick out of Vanderbilt. 6'6", 6'10" wingspan, great size for a shooting guard. 6'6", see, a shooting guard. 51% from 3 on 8 attempts in college at Vanderbilt. He shot 8 attempts and made half of them. I'd say that dude is pretty good shooting the ball. Played under Stackhouse in Vanderbilt. That was their coach, and they played a very specific scheme. So it was kind of hard for the guys who were making the draft video that I was studying to really give you an understanding of how good he was defensively in college, because they just had him doing very specific things in their system. But ultimately, it looked like he had some very, very, very good defensive intangibles and natural ability there. So that's what they were able to say. Catch and shoot, great off the ball, can definitely get open. One of the best shooters out there just naturally. So, of course, he's going to be able to do the things that shooters do in getting themselves open. He's active in passing lanes as well. Improved defensively in college. Great potential on the defensive end, as I said. Shines in help D situations. This is a shot blocker and a chase down shot blocker specialist, to be exact. And that's what I'm saying. So, like, Aaron Naismith is not a ball handler. They said he can dribble 3 times. After that, he better pick it up because he can't ball handle. That's the thing they said about him. But what can he do? He can shoot, and he can play on the other side of the ball and do something extraordinary on that other side of the ball, which is chase down people in the transition and block their shot with his lane. At the shooting guard position, that is super, super impressive. And you'll live with the fact that he can't dribble. You see, you got to be able to do other things. If you're deficient in some areas, you can't just be like, all right, just give me the ball in the post in the NBA, and we're going to work through me. Boy, no, you're never going to get that type of cachet in this era to begin with. It's a rough road for that dude. But as far as Aaron Naismith, look, they just got to develop him just like they got to develop Romeo Langford. Give him more opportunities. Same situation. You got a shooting guard here who's not getting the minutes because the stars on the team are shooting guards. The free agents are shooting guards. It's like, come on, Boston, create some space for these guys. If you're going to watch a guy walk out your door at the small forward position and he's a shooter, don't sign Josh Richardson when you got these 2 kids back there. Play them. This is the exact problem you had with Jaylen Brown and why his production wasn't as fluid as it should have been. Why he hasn't made 3 All-Stars as opposed to 1. It's because you did what you're doing to Aaron Naismith and Romeo Langford to them. That's what happened to them. They ended up having to deal with this type of bull crap. So this is what Boston's infamous for. That's why I don't really like how they structure their team. They are very, very, very good in terms of finding good talent. But once they get there, do they turn them into what they should? Or do they just stash them on the back of their bench and just say they can't play no more and leave it at that? That's the problem I have with the Boston Celtics and several other teams out there. But all in all, this year, they're going to be a good team because they have these type of players. If Aaron Naismith and Langford are able to take steps forward, they got one of the best benches in the league. Because I know Pritchard's going to ball. And they have players on this team that I just know what they're going to do. They have reliable players. Dennis Schroeder, I know what he's going to do. Jaylen Brown, I know what he's going to do. Tatum, know what he's going to do. Marcus Smart, Al Horford, Robert Williams, Peyton Pritchett, Jabari Parker, Enes Kanter. All of these guys that I've mentioned right there are reliable players. Very reliable. Now, collectively, do they come together to win the East? I don't think they are as good as some of the other teams in the Eastern Conference. And my thing with the Boston Celtics, in a previous video I mentioned this, I think that in re-signing some of the players that they believe in, some of the players that they have homegrown, I just didn't feel like they were doing enough to go after it based on the fact that the Lakers right now are going after a championship, looking to pass them up. So I've been on this kick about how I think the Boston Celtics need to be going after it this year. If you can make a trade for a Dame Lillard or someone that can help you get to that next level, that should be the goal, to keep us, Laker fan here, from winning number 18 above you guys. And I just don't think they're using that competitive edge to take advantage of what's in front of them, which is that. You've never been passed up by the Los Angeles Lakers. Why the hell are you allowing it to happen in 2021? Or even letting the potential of such a thing happen without you guys having something to say for it? Some people think this is going to be the 3rd best team in the Eastern Conference. Newsflash, even if they do reach 3rd best, guess what they're not good enough to do? Win the championship and stop us from taking it from them. So, as somebody who's a lifelong Laker fan, who understands the importance of being competitive within this rivalry, I'd say that the current Boston Celtic administration is doing a disservice to all of the history that those two franchises have been going through for the last 80 years, however long it's been. They're doing a disservice to it. The Lakers should not be a contender in the year when we can tie you guys, with you guys not being a contender. That's an L. It's a simple L. So that's what I think of the Boston Celtics. I just feel like it's a lot of safe stuff going on there. Again, a lot of players kind of double down in the same position. I'm not in love with the team. I just look at the Eastern Conference as too damn competitive this year. I look at Chicago, I look at Miami, I look at Milwaukee, I look at obviously the Brooklyn Nets, and I look at teams like Charlotte and Cleveland who have gotten significantly better. Orlando, who has players coming back from injury and has also acquired some stars. A team like Detroit with a huge lineup and a young star as well. It just goes on and on. There's too many teams in the Eastern Conference right now for me to look at this roster and say, yeah, they about to be that team in the East. No, they're not. They're not. I think they can be bottom half of the playoff picture, maybe even play-in team. You know, now that I'm aware of how the upside of a Romeo Langford and, some of the young guys, obviously, Aaron Naismith. Now that I know the upside of those two particular players, my vision for their upside has increased. I like them more now that I know what those players are capable of. But you got to play them. They can't have their minutes snatched up by Jabari and Josh Richardson. That can't happen. You got to play these guys. Peyton Pritchett, I know what Peyton Pritchett is. I can tell you right now, Peyton Pritchett reminds me of a young Steve Nash. Not in terms of passing the rock, as we said, but in terms of scoring and being smart and breaking people down and being a small guard who happens to be Caucasian. Yes, he reminds me of Steve Nash. He has some pop in him, some greatness in him in terms of his poise and his shooting. He can do things. He has to be given an opportunity to do that. You're bringing in Dennis Schroeder, obviously Marcus Smart can play in any situation, but I want Peyton to start. I want to see Peyton get an opportunity to start in his team. And if he's not starting, he should be getting the first bench nod behind Marcus Smart. So it's just, I think I would love to see the Boston Celtics. I would love to see them make a trade for something big. But something big that won't take away minutes from Romeo and Aaron, but give minutes to Romeo and Aaron. In other words, make a trade for Josh Smith. Make a trade for some of these guys. Get another star power forward. Trade your Josh Richardson, Jabari Parker in a pick or two and get you a power forward. That way it opens up things for all these other guys. Al Horford doesn't mind sitting at this stage in his career. You'll have a star power forward. You'll have all these other guys falling into place. And then Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown will essentially be able to sit down and have really, really good backup guys coming in ready to go. Because as long as Romeo and Aaron are third string, your team is not as good as it's supposed to be, period. So develop those two players. That is your most important thing right now. Just turn this thing around in terms of those two players' potential. Raise them into the developing players that they were drafted to be, and I promise you, those assets will be two of the most valuable assets you have. But if you don't develop those players, your potential is capped, period. So, my name is BDL44. That's what I got. Lakers, that's my team. I'm always anti-Celtics, but I do want to see you guys competitive. The NBA is better when y'all are playing for championships. So cut this nonsense out and get yourself a championship team. My name is BDL44. Thank y'all for watching. I'm out.